Welcome to today's explainer. Let's just jump right into it, shall we? Today, we're unpacking a truly remarkable 7th century text that reveals a powerful secret about human nature and, honestly, about the eternal repetition of history. We're diving deep into Surah Ash-Shu'ara, which is a profoundly fascinating chapter from the Qur'an. Now, whether you're already deeply familiar with this text or you're coming to it for the very first time, the patterns it exposes are absolutely captivating. It breaks down exactly how humans argue, how our societies react to hard truths, and how history, despite all our flashy technological progress, literally just keeps repeating itself.
So let me ask you this. Have you ever felt completely exhausted by modern debates? You know that feeling when you're trying to explain something principled and you feel like no one's listening, like you're just talking to a brick wall of stubbornness? Well, understanding this text completely shifts our perspective on that exact frustration. It shows us that this feeling, it isn't just your imagination, and it's certainly not unique to the internet age. It's a deeply ingrained historical pattern. And honestly, this realization kind of shifts us away from feeling so isolated by our daily ideological struggles. Instead, it helps us recognize a profound repeating rhythm that has dictated human behavior since the absolute dawn of civilization.
To really grasp what's going on here, we need to step back into the middle period of Mecca, right into the thick of an intense ideological war of words. We're looking at chapter 26 of the Qur'an, Surah Ash-Shuara, which translates to the poets. You see, the Prophet Muhammad wasn't fighting physical battles at this point in history. He was fighting a massive battle of ideas. His primary opponents, the Quraysh, were leveraging the cultural superstars of their day, the poets, to publicly ridicule his message. They accused him of being a sorcerer, a madman, or, simply just another poet himself trying to win over the crowd. Now, it's incredibly common for people to misread this chapter's title and even its ending as a blanket attack on art and imagination. But actually, if we look closely at the source text, it's a highly strategic defense. The text isn't condemning the art form of poetry itself. No, not at all. Rather, it's launching a precise surgical critique of the content and the character of the pagan poets from that specific 7th century context. It draws a brilliantly sharp line between divine, principled truth on one hand and the kind of flashy, aimless speech that just tells people whatever they want to hear on the other. I mean, it's essentially the ancient equivalent of calling out clickbait. As the chapter unfolds, the text presents this profound psychological comfort by revealing what we might call the golden thread of history. Think of it like the playbook of disbelief. We often assume that arguments against faith or deep truth are, highly sophisticated, evolved, super modern, right? But the text systematically demonstrates that these arguments are actually incredibly unoriginal. Time and time again, the arrogant elites fall back on the exact same lazy claims. They say things like, oh, you're just a normal person, or they dismiss a movement with only the poor and weak follow you, or you're just repeating ancient legends. The sheer lack of creativity across the centuries is honestly staggering. Just think about the absolute arrogance of this response. You are but a man like ourselves. The text shows us this exact dismissive script wasn't just used once. No way. It was leveled against entirely different prophets living thousands of years apart, always by their respective arrogant elites. It was said to Noah. It was said to Salih. It was said to Shuaib. It's a wildly powerful lesson in perspective. The pushback you might face today for standing up for a principled truth isn't some new phenomenon. It's literally the exact same unoriginal script that fragile human egos have been hiding behind for millennia. And watch how this exact dynamic builds across 6 distinct historical eras. The Surah doesn't just drop one story and move on. It acts as a methodical, patient historian. It deliberately walks us through the detailed narratives of 7 ancient prophets: Noah, Hud, Salih, Abraham, Lot, Shuaib, and Moses. And here's where the absolute masterclass in pattern recognition comes in. The text is intentionally designed to be repetitive. It's taking you by the hand, era after era, to definitively prove that the fundamental human reaction to divine guidance hasn't evolved. It's remained stubbornly identical throughout the ages. Notice how every single one of these prophetic stories folds naturally into an identical structural template. It's like clockwork. 1, it always begins with a clear message being delivered to the people. 2, instantly the arrogant elites reject it, using those same tired excuses we just talked about. 3, the prophet patiently and persistently warns them of the consequences. 4, ultimately the sincere believers are saved. And 5, the stubborn deniers are destroyed. By presenting this exact sequence 7 different times, the text proves that God's way of dealing with humanity is consistent, entirely just, and fully predictable. There are absolutely no historical accidents here. Yet within these recurring macro narratives, there are these moments of incredible, intimate human transformation. Take the story of Moses and Pharaoh's magicians. These guys started their day purely chasing wealth, literally asking Pharaoh for a massive financial reward. But the very moment they're confronted with the undeniable truth of Moses' miracle, their entire worldview shatters. They submit instantly, and when Pharaoh threatens them with brutal, gruesome execution, they don't even flinch. It's a deeply hopeful model of sincere repentance, showing us how a single moment of absolute intellectual honesty can transform corrupt elites into fearless believers in just one day, a real game changer. Now, we're all endlessly obsessed with novelty today, right? We always want the next big thing, the newest gadget, the most original, disruptive idea. But this text presents a fascinating paradox that really challenges our modern sensibilities. The repeating rhythm of this chapter teaches us that the consistency of the truth is actually its greatest strength and its ultimate proof. The truth isn't trying to entertain you with a brand new plot twist every single time. Actually, the so-called boring consistency of the message, the simple fact that it's eternal and unchanging, is exactly what makes it a reliable anchor in a pretty chaotic world. To really hammer home this consistency, the text uses a powerful rhythmic literary device. Listen to this exact refrain, which concludes every single one of those 7 stories. Indeed, in that is a sign, but most of them were not to be believers. And indeed, your Lord, He is the exalted in might, the merciful. This phrase acts as the theological heartbeat of the entire chapter. It's an acoustic and thematic signature. By repeating it word for word, the text beautifully ties the grand sweep of all human history together under one single unified divine commentary. Let's break down exactly what that refrain means, because it illustrates a profoundly important worldview, the duality of God's power. The text shows us that we've got to hold 2 realities in our minds simultaneously. On one hand, we see God's irresistible might, Al-Aziz, which brings perfect justice and ultimate destruction to arrogant, unyielding tyrants like Pharaoh. But on the other hand, we see His immense mercy, Ar-Rahim, which brings compassionate salvation and protection to the faithful, just like Noah in the ark or Moses at the sea. It's this perfectly balanced reality of absolute severity and unmatched gentleness. And this brings us full circle to the chapter's title and the specific context of those 7th century poets. The text diagnoses them using a truly brilliant Arabic idiom, fi kulli wadin yahimun, which means roaming in every valley. In ancient Arabic poetry, a valley referred to a theme or a topic. So this idiom paints a vivid picture of people wandering aimlessly from topic to topic, saying whatever sounds good, whatever wins favor with the crowd, without any moral anchor or higher purpose. Honestly, it is the ultimate, timeless description of intellectual and spiritual aimlessness. Ultimately, the chapter leaves us with a decisive final verdict, clearly contrasting these 2 types of communication. On one side, you have the prophetic message, which is deeply consistent, firmly principled, truthful, and grounded in a necessary divine warning. On the other side, you have the pagan poets, whose speech is flashy but entirely empty, aimless, hypocritical, and completely focused on saying beautiful things that they don't actually practice in real life. It's a huge reminder for all of us to evaluate not just how beautifully something is said, but the actual solid truth behind the words. So, as we wrap up this explainer, the source material leaves us with a really critical reflection. In our modern world filled to the absolute brim with influencers, endless media, and hot takes, it is so easy to get lost roaming in every valley. Reflect on whether you'll let repetitive, unoriginal arguments exhaust you, or if you'll use this historical blueprint to stand firm. The patterns are right there, repeating predictably across the millennia. The choice is whether we'll allow ourselves to be distracted by all the noise, or if we'll find true strength in the eternal truth. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive, and keep seeking out those patterns.